is not only driving corporations offshore, but the country is seeing an increase in expats, expatriates renouncing their citizenship and cutting their ties because of taxes. Grover Norquist, founder for Americans for Tax Reform, joins us now with more. Good morning, Grover.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's all has to do with corporations trying to do inversions, and I've seen some of this expat stuff. Someone was comparing, Grover, expats to people that went to Canada during the war, and I guess they're saying that one didn't want to fight for their country, another didn't want to, conflating that with paying taxes. But if you're willing to give up U.S. citizenship, you're the loser, right? In my view, if you give up a citizenship of the greatest country of the world, if that's what you want to do, then go ahead and do it. We don't want you here.
Well, two things. We have to look at why this is happening. We used to have lower marginal tax rates for individuals and companies than the rest of the world. During the Reagan years, we took it from 70% to 28%, and the rest of the world noticed that there were advantages to being an American or an American company. You paid lower taxes. We also have a worldwide tax system, and the problem is the rest of the world started cutting their taxes. Canada, which you mentioned, has a 15% corporate rate. We're at 35% plus, about 4.8%, almost 5% at the state and local level. So about 40% of American corporate income is taxed away. It's 15 in Canada. The European average is 25. That's also true, unfortunately, for individuals as well. And our government, if you are French and you live in the United States for a couple of years, you pay American taxes as an individual. You don't pay French taxes because you earned it here. You pay American taxes. If you're an American and you live in France for 30 years, France tax you and we tax you. We make it very difficult to be an American and to move around in a global world, either as a company or an individual. I mean, these people decided for decades to keep paying American taxes. At some point, it just got to be too much for several thousand others.
Grover, I can just tell you that the left and their friends in the media will immediately tell you that no corporations pay 35%, and they'll say that in fact, the blended rate is 12%. Now, they fail to mention it's because people are moving operations offshore, so that's why it's a blended rate. But that's the narrative that they'll give you, and they'll be supported by the New York Times and others so that everyone comes up with that same conclusion. And in this country, for whatever reason, in the last 5 years, people think that a punitive tax rate on corporations is not something to really, they deserve to pay higher taxes because they're corporations. It's all part of the zeitgeist that we have right now in this country.
But while we're on that issue and your viewers are watching, when somebody talks about the average tax, nobody makes a decision based on averages. You can drown walking across a river with an average depth of 2 feet. What matters is the marginal tax rate, the additional last dollar that you earn or invest. That's taxed at 35%, actually 40% if you're in a state that has state and local corporate income taxes. Not all do, but on average, about 40%. And then you say, well, if you're a Canadian company, it'd be 15%. Do you not notice a difference here? You can't, beat your dog and then wonder why he wants to live in somebody else's house. We're doing a lot of damage to our companies and individuals.
Grover, one of the things that's happened, as we talked about, is just the number of inversions over the past couple of months, and there's a real sense, you can speak to this probably better than anyone, Harold, since you're at Morgan Stanley, a lot of companies that want to do these over the next, I think over the next 12 months, we're going to see even more of it.
Yeah.
In the immediate term, is there anything that can be done realistically about this situation? Because there are some people in Washington and even on Wall Street who say, you know what, we should try to put some kind of temporary halt on this as we try, at the same time, try to come up with some comprehensive tax reform, neither of which I think is probably realistic, but nonetheless.
No, there's not some short-term deal. The United States government has caused a problem by abusively taxing both individuals who live overseas and companies that deal in international trade and sell things and do business throughout the world, global companies. We want that kind of leadership, and yet we do damage to American-owned companies that France doesn't do to French-owned companies. And stupider than France, is not where you want to be on tax policy. Cut the rate down to 20% on corporations. Canada's at 15. We can do 20 because we also have that 5% state and local tax as well. To be where Europe is on average, 25, we have to be at 20 nationally, and then there's the actual additional 5 that state and local governments impose.
Okay, right. I mean, Harold, when you see people want to, there are a lot of people who like to raise taxes on corporations. They just want to do it. They don't, a lot on your side of the aisle, they don't see the connection between corporations and jobs. Does that ever get to you? Do you ever see that and wish you could change that?
I do. I mean, I've been an advocate while I was in Congress, now that I'm out, for lowering the rate. I think for the reasons that Grover and I don't agree on everything, but for the sentiment and the instinct that he has around this, I happen to agree with him. I do still believe, to your original point, that if you want to renounce your citizenship from the U.S. because of this, you go right ahead. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world.
Would you, Andrew's idea is the Levin idea. Now Carl Levin is the guy who's put in all the loopholes that, for whatever reason that corporations use. They think, hey, let's just not allow them to move. Let's say you need 50% shareholders to move.
That's let's not
fix,
step.
Yeah, not just temporary, but it's just saying you're stuck here and you're paying us no matter what. It's almost addressing the symptoms of the disease rather than the disease. And Grover, right, Grover? I mean, to just not allow these companies to move doesn't address the issue, but that's what they want to do.
Okay, not to over-exaggerate, but at some point, East Germany noticed people were leaving East Germany. Instead of deciding to treat people better in East Germany, they built a wall. Building a wall is not what we want to do. Let's find out what we're doing that is destructive to American interests and stop doing it.
I got a somewhat difficult question for Harold, because you're in politics but also in business. Client comes to you, says he wants to do an inversion. What do you tell him?
I work for my clients. So, I mean, we'd work to figure out ways to make it happen. But from a broad form point, look, we're not East Germany, but and I see where he's going with it, but these policies should be changed. To your point, it's temporary to look at what we need something bigger and got to do.
Grover,
drop it to 20%. Let's do it.
Before Grover goes, I got one thing for him. He wants the Redskins to be named after. Do you know this?
No.
Your favorite person?
Absolutely, Ronald Reagan.
Oh,
the Washington Reagan.
Idea. That is
Problem
a great
solved.
idea. That is a great idea.
Hey, Grover, stick to taxes, brother.
No.
He said that to BuzzFeed.
Do you mind Redskins?
He's going to have to change it. And I grew up a Redskins fan.
You don't want to do Reagan?
He's pushing for Reagan. Grover, thank you.
One may argue.